have a disagreement. Here's a one where there's a lot of contestation out there right now about this. How many people love the Electoral College? Okay, I see one. Great. Okay, we have one person who loves the Electoral College. So let's be clear about what we could talk about with the Electoral College. There's a bunch of your colleagues who are talking about abolishing the Electoral College. That's cheap talk, because to abolish the Electoral College requires an amendment to the Constitution. That requires at least 2/3 of Congress or a convention, and both of those seem like not real paths. So it's easy to talk about, but not really easy to think about actually doing something about it.
Yep.
But if you think about what the real problem with the Electoral College is, the real problem, it seems to me, is not the problem that people sometimes obsess about, which is that every couple of elections it seems now to not select the winner of the popular vote. And in fact, we can show that's going to increase over time. We're going to have more and more cases where the loser of the popular vote would be selected by the Electoral College. But that's not the real problem. The real problem is a problem that happens in every single election. And that is that because all but 2 states, Maine and Nebraska, allocate their electors in a winner-take-all way, so if you win the state, you get all the electors of that state, that means that presidential campaigns know the only states they need to care about are the so-called battleground states, the purple states. Because there's no reason if you're a Republican to go to Texas. You're going to win Texas. And there's no reason if you're a Democrat to go to Texas. You're going to lose Texas. So Texas is just not a place you're going to campaign, neither New York, neither South Carolina, none of these states. The only states you're going to spend any money on or any time in are the battleground states. So in 2016...
Unless you're sucking up to rich people from money in that state.
Okay. You stole my punchline, but that's okay. In 2016, 99% of campaign spending was in 14 states. And 95% of campaign time was in 14 states. The other 5% was in the non-battleground states.
Was in Los Angeles, New York, San Francisco,
exactly right.
Boston.
To raise money. Okay, so you stole it again. That's not fair. Twice you've stolen my punchline.
Hey man, I'm running for president. I actually live this stuff.
Okay, so this dynamic of winner take all produces a president who represents the battleground states. But here's the thing about the battleground states: they don't represent America. They're older, they're whiter, their industry is kind of, middle 20th century industry. There's 7.5 times the number of people in America working in solar energy as mine coal. But you never hear about solar energy in a presidential campaign because they happen to live in Texas and California. You hear about coal miners because they live in the battleground states. So this problem of winner take all is the thing that makes the president not focused on all of America.
Yes.
And so when you think about how to solve that problem, if we don't think we can just click and have a new constitution, what do you think we ought to be doing?
Well, I think you and I are in agreement with this, where the ideal would be to have electoral votes allocated proportionally, so that even though I don't think Democrats are going to win Texas, it still might make sense for me to campaign in Texas if I can get some proportion of Texan voters to come my way and then end up getting electoral votes. Because I couldn't agree more. The problem right now is that your incentives are just to campaign in the 14 battleground states. So if you make it so that every state is a battleground, then your incentives change where you have to campaign everywhere.
Okay, and then what about this alternative, which many states have now passed, 12 states have now passed, the National Popular Vote Compact.
Yeah, the compact, right.
And the National Popular Vote Compact says that when the equivalent of 270 electoral votes have been committed to the compact, then the states who have agreed to the compact will pledge their electors to the winner of the National Popular Vote, regardless of who wins in their own state. So California, if a Republican wins, would send all of their electors to the Republican, regardless of the fact that the Republican lost in California. Do you have a view on National Popular Vote?
So I know that there's something really beautiful and elegant sounding about everyone's vote just counts for one vote and then the National Popular Vote wins. And as far as I can tell, the compact in some ways tries to achieve the same result. But the issue is that then your incentives are to campaign in really big media markets, in really big population centers, and your incentives to campaign in rural areas or less densely populated areas are very, very low, because you're just trying to get as many people per time unit as possible. And so that's true if you get rid of the Electoral College, that's true with the compact. And the electoral vote, the electoral college has been in place for decades. You can take issue with it, but we kind of know what it is, and that is the way it was set up constitutionally. So I'm much more in favor of the proportional electoral vote by state as the fix than I am in either getting rid of the electoral college or even the winner-take-all compact.
And that means you would even not favor the amendment, or would you favor the amendment? You just don't think it's likely?
You mean if I had a magic wand and say, hey, I could get rid of the electoral college?
I thought you had a magic wand. You don't have a magic wand?
I do have a magic wand, that's true. Yes. I am not for just abolishing the electoral college right now. And one of the reasons why I'm not for it right now is that there's like this sinking feeling I have that Democrats have lost a couple of elections based on the electoral college and now are calling that system into question. Even though those are the clear rules and that's what it's been. And so to me, it's very unprincipled if your side loses to say, I need to change the rules because the rules are bogus. It would be different if the winning side were to say, hey, these rules are bogus, but it's hard for the losing side to then change those rules without coming across as very, very unprincipled.
Yeah, we lost a great opportunity, after 2000, where obviously George Bush lost the popular vote but won the Electoral College. In 2004, if 50,000 votes had shifted in Ohio to John Kerry would have won the Electoral College but lost the national popular vote. And if you'd have a Democrat win after a Republican had won, I think then people would see this as a nonpartisan issue that we ought to address. But I do agree with you, it has this partisan valence, and maybe the last thing in the world we need right now is people to think that we're screwing around with the rules for partisan purposes. Okay, so here's my last question, my last push, the one I care the most about, so think of it as my punchline. Don't steal it. And then we're going to have questions. And to have questions, I have one that's written already by a really well-prepared young lady. So I'm going to ask that question first. She's 9, I think. But then we're going to have other questions. And, we have more written here. So are we handing out these cards? Okay, so the cards have handed out, so I have all the questions here. So we don't have to have the lights up. That's all we're going to need. But here's my punchline question. So I was so